I'm Annette, and I'm a compulsive eater, and I weigh and measure 3 meals a day from the Gray Sheet. I commit them to my sponsor. I don't eat in between no matter what, and abstinence is the most important thing in my life without exception. I'm abstinent and grateful by the grace of God and the power of all of you since January 20, 2016. I love Gray Sheet. I'm so grateful to Gray Sheet and all of you, and it's a privilege to talk and tell my story, even though I think it's kind of boring. But anyway, here I go. I was in another food fellowship for 10 years and at an all-time high weight. I was thinking of just describing this one story, and the rest, you know, you'll see what kind of eater I was, down and dirty, compulsive eater I was. During that 10 years, at one point, my abstinence was always sloppy, but it was, it had too many loopholes for me. And one time I was cleaning house, and I had about 5 months abstinent at the time, and I found something under my son's bed left over from Christmas, and a whole box of things that were individually wrapped. I put it away. I freaked out and went on cleaning, and within a half hour I was back in there. I opened it up and I ate one, and I put it back, and then I kept cleaning, and then I went and got it again and opened it up, and finally I just brought it out, sat on the couch, and I was home alone. If my kids were around, I would have been a closet thing and I wouldn't have done it, but I was home alone, and I sat and I just started eating them all, because I knew I just had this whole body surrender of shit, I'm going to eat every one of these until they're gone, because that's just what I have to do. I can't stop. And I sat and ate them, and I was so sick, and I was practically throwing up at the last few, and I finished them all. And because I had about 5 months clean, I could feel that the sugar running through my veins, and I just felt so sick and so miserable. So that's how I ate, you know, that's how I qualify to be here. And there are many other stories similar to that. That was just one of them. And I ate like that my whole life since my age 5, my first memories at age 5. And so, you know, I was in a program for 12-step program for food, and I never really, you know, for the first 2 years I was pretty successful, but I never had long-term abstinence like we do in Gray Sheet. You know, it was the best I'd ever done. I did all the questions. I did them over and over. There were recommitment questions, you know, for if you relapsed. I did those. I felt like the you know, star of the, you know, I did everything, and I went to every meeting, and I was diligent. But at the end, I had things happen in my life. My sponsor had passed away, and she was, you know, I held on to her, I guess, I don't know, but I just couldn't get any good clean time after that, and was at an all-time high weight when somebody from Gray Sheet came to my OA How meeting. And I felt like I was sucking the energy out of my meeting, but I never stopped going, because I believed in the 12 steps, and I was clean and sober, and you know, this person came and had almost 9 years abstinent, and she said the mantra, and, you know, my heart just started this thud, you know, like I knew there was something. It's like, oh my God, there's something else that I haven't tried. And I knew it was, I just knew. And 3 weeks, it took me 3 weeks to get this person to sponsor me, but she finally said yes. And I think I seemed like a know-it-all. I don't know, but I think that 3 weeks where she didn't say yes right away were crucial to my recovery, because, you know, that was March 9th, 1999, when I committed my first meal, and my first thought is, oh shit, I can't do this for 5 seconds. Like, who am I kidding? But I committed my first meal, and the obsession was lifted. I mean, it was lifted clean out of me. And you know, sometimes I think it's because I spent, you know, my first at least week like terrified that I would make a mistake, and weighing and measuring is a lot of work, and it's, you know, I was distracted by all that, you know, doing all the mechanics of learning how to be abstinent. And pretty soon, you know, I just realized the obsession was lifted, even when I was afraid to go into the kitchen and make my meals by myself, because I was always sneaking in there, you know, when no one was looking. And the obsession, you know, so that's when I really learned that one day at a time, no matter what. You know, you guys talked about no matter what. We don't eat no matter what, and I'd never heard that, you know, and I related that to drinking. I knew I didn't drink no matter what, but I didn't know that about food. And it's, you know, and I heard there's always another meal coming, and you know, my life has just been amazing since then. And a lot of you know that I was coming up on 17 years abstinent, and I had a relapse. I ate something, I inhaled something. It was horrible. It wasn't a good experience. If you want to know more about it, I'm happy to talk about it, but I've talked about it a lot. So, you know, that was a horrible part of my story. And I feel like was given God's grace a second time, you know, like a second chance of Grey Sheet. A lot of people, when they relapse, can't seem to get back, or they struggle for a long time off and on. And so far, so good. It's been over 4 years now. And I'm just so grateful. And I'm grateful for, you know, how I was before Grey Sheet is I hated myself. I hated everything about me. And even if I had good qualities, which I could, you know, I could acknowledge that I had some good things about myself. And, you know, I worked out really hard at being a good person, you know, to make up for all these other glaring flaws that I felt like I had. And, you know, I hated how I looked. I was preoccupied with food. I was preoccupied with not eating food. I was preoccupied with how I looked and how I sounded. I thought I was fat, ugly, and stupid. That went through my mind like a mantra, all, you know, 24/7 pretty much. And what I learned, you know, in doing the steps since I've been abstinent, I've done about 7 AWOLs since I've been abstinent. I've led 3 or 4 of them. But working the steps, I've learned that, you know, that's a lot of ego. When I'm thinking about what you think of me and what do I look like, and does my fat show, does that, you know, all this stuff. Just the way I lived before Grey Sheet was all about me. And I never would have known that had I not worked through the steps and worked through the steps with a clear Grey Sheet mind. You know, working the steps abstinently is completely different than before when I worked steps in my other programs, you know, in Al-Anon and in AA. Once I got abstinent, it's a whole different story without the food in, you know, distracting me. Food is such a distraction, and it's a constant, it would just take over my mind. You know, it's like I had this underlying conversation going on in my head 24/7, and it was about me, about food, and how could I get it, and how could I sneak it, and how could I keep you from knowing. And it's crazy because, you know, we wear it. This disease can't be hidden like some diseases. And, you know, I thought I was fooling other people, and, you know, I wasn't fooling anybody. And sadly, I was just lying to myself all the time. I didn't know about how to be honest or how to, you know, really, you know, I worked hard at being a good person and putting other people first and doing service and all that. And I love doing service, and I'm a people person, you know. In my job, I was a people person. And yet, you know, I loved all of you, but I just could not love me. You know, it's like I am flawed. And, you know, again, that's ego. It's like, but poor me, I'm flawed. and it's a sad thing, you know, really, when I look. I'm not laughing because it's funny. It's sad to think of how this disease just robbed me. It took me my life. It sucked it out of me. And sometimes I wonder, you know, I might have been a rocket science had I not been consumed with food all the time. You know, I really wanted to play volleyball and I love gymnastics, but it kept me from all of that. And I love the life that I have. I don't have regrets, but you know, there are so many things that I wished I could do, but I just felt so small and so insignificant and so bad about myself. Thank you. So I have 5 more minutes. I got, okay. And this program has just given me so much. I don't live today in a world of self-pity. I live in a world of gratitude, and the silly little problems I have today are such luxuries. And sometimes I just think, how did I get so lucky? I mean, how did I get to be lucky enough to be willing to weigh and measure the first meal? How did, you know, it's like, and it's very clear to me that it wasn't orchestrated by me finally. It was finally, you know, me surrendering to a higher power and allowing all this good stuff to enter into my life. You know, I get to be happy. I get to weigh and measure. I deserve to treat myself like a queen, you know, and I feel like we get to do that in Grey Sheet, and we get to celebrate, you know, that I am a good person, and yet have that fine balance with ego, you know, to know that to just feel good about me and to just be a worker among workers, and be a Grey Sheeter and share the message. And early on I realized it's like, wow, what's working is being grateful and giving it away, being grateful and being willing to share this with another human being so that I can help other people, you know, in whenever possible, whenever somebody seems open or willing or wants this program or wants to know why I'm weighing and measuring. And so being willing to give it away and being grateful. And that was my, what felt like my magic thing that was working. And I just held on to that as a newcomer. It's like, stay grateful and give it away. And I've been doing that, you know, to this day. And I love working through the steps and all the books that there are, and the wonderful women in my life that have so much wisdom. And I felt really honored to be able to go to the World Service Conference this year and meet a whole bunch of you that I hadn't met yet. And you know, this program is saved my life, and I just want to do everything I can to make sure that it's here for other people. And it breaks my heart when I see people on the street. I made myself those business cards that, you know, have my name and GreySheet.org and stuff that you can get. You can print your own online if you don't know that. And I've made them for several people. And but I've never given one away. You know, I've just like asked my higher power, let me know if that would be the right thing to do in the right moment. But, you know, I'm always afraid I'm going to offend somebody. But there have been times when I've been this close to saying, you know, hand in one, when I see somebody that's in such pain, you know, and it doesn't always mean that it's, you know, showing on their physical body, but sometimes it's just, you know, the behavior, you know, watching people eat sometimes in a setting, or my family members or whoever, people in my other programs a lot of times need, you know, could benefit from this program. But sometimes I just think, how could I get so lucky? And what I do is I keep weighing and measuring. I keep showing up. I come to Zoom meetings. I sponsor quite a few people, and I call, you know, and have a connection with my own sponsor, and I commit my food and weigh and measure without exception from the Grey Sheet. And we just went vegan, you know, back in September. And so today I had my first vegan hostage meal at a coffee shop with a bunch of Grey Sheeters in Phoenix. So that was fun. We were traveling, and I got to, you know, change the recipe, but now it's got to be tweaked a little bit. It felt like a brick after I ate it in my stomach. Like, whoa, okay, we're going to figure out, you know, but it's fun to figure out ways to be abstinent, you know, and to be able to show up and live life and be spontaneous. You know, Grey Sheet is doable. It's portable. It's doable in all situations. And what a gift. I mean, and what a gift that all of you are. I just love the people in Grey Sheet. I feel like I'm on a U.S. Grey Sheet world tour, trying to meet as many Grey Sheeters as I can. And we're having a really great time. So anyway, I am going to close with that and just tell you, another thing I'll say is that a really important part of my practice is prayer and meditation in the morning. And I also do yoga and working on my spiritual program. And for me, it's like air. Thank you, Matthew. For me, prayer and meditation, you know, there's a place in the big book, it says there is it's a 12 by 12 actually. There is a direct linkage among self-examination, step 10, meditation and prayer, step 11. Taken separately, these practices can bring much relief and benefit, but when they are logically related and interwoven, the result is an unshakable foundation for life. And I agree, like it says in the rest of that step, you know, it's like air for me, prayer and meditation. And I believe that, you know, working on continuing to have a relationship with my higher power is where it's at for me, and being the best person I can be today. So thank you all for the wonderful life I have.